Hello, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. And if you are new here, hi, my name is Brooke, and on this channel, I like to talk about personal finances and lifestyle things. So if you like those kinds of content, please make sure to subscribe. I would love to have you over here. Now, I didn't film a video last week because I was on vacation and I didn't pre-film anything, so I'm so sorry about not having an upload last week, but we're getting back on the train. We are getting all of our stuff in a row. So this one is actually going to be a really fun video. So I hope you all enjoy what I'm doing. So what we're going to be doing in this video is I've talked about how we have moved up our timeline for moving. And so I kind of wanted to look over some different ways to think about what you need in order to be ready to move, and also like how much is this going to cost, like all that kind of stuff. And to help me kind of walk through all of this things that I'm thinking about when it comes to getting everything ready for potentially making that change, I'm going to be turning to ChatGPT because I think it's a really good tool to use if you're thinking through different things. And I only have the free version, so I think it's pretty good even with just the free version. There is a limit with like how much you can talk to it, but I find it to be really good about analyzing different scenarios and situations and giving you like good rules of thumbs for things because it has read all the personal finance stuff out there pretty much on the internet, so it kind of knows it all. So let's hop right into ChatGPT and see what it says about our timeline, if it's reasonable, and that kind of stuff. All right, so if you see me looking down, it's because I'm looking down at my screen. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. But let's go ahead. Okay, so where should we begin? So first, I want to kind of tell it what I want to do, tell it my timeline, and that kind of stuff. So I want to move in the next year, and I want to determine how much house I can afford. So let's just go ahead and kind of set up the questions. Okay, I had to move my camera because you couldn't see what was going on. So I just moved it over here. Hopefully this is a good spot for it so you can actually read what it's saying, but we'll kind of go over it and we'll also talk about my feelings about what it's saying. So that's a smart move to think through in advance. Let's work it out step by step, which is what I would say too if you are thinking about moving. The amount of house you can afford depends on a few key pieces of information. One, your income, gross annual before taxes or monthly take home. Two, any debts, your monthly payments for student loans, car loans, credit cards, etc., your down payments and savings, how much you can put up front, and how much you want to keep in your emergency fund after buying, your target monthly comfort zone. And this gives the rule of thumbs that most lenders follow the 28-36 rule. And that means that your housing costs, which includes mortgage, property, taxes, insurance, HOA, all of that combined, should be less than or equal to 28% of your gross monthly income. So not your net, but your gross. And then your total debt payments, so housing plus all of your other debts, car payments, student loans, that kind of stuff, should be under 36% of your gross monthly income. I think those are some good numbers to like benchmark if you're thinking about this. I know different people have different rules of thumb. I know that Ramit Sethi says it should be your total housing cost should be 25% or less of your gross monthly income. So, he's a little bit lower than that. But that's also because he believes in making sure that you have enough room to live your life and not be house poor. And it also does give the caveat you want to be more conservative depending on your lifestyle. And then 5 is local factors. So it does depend on where you're living and what is the taxes in your area and that kind of stuff. So let's give it some information about what I am working with. And I'm going to give it just some rough numbers. I'm not going to give it like my entire debt spreadsheet or like anything like that. I'm just going to give it some overall like numbers so that we can kind of see this as an exercise, and it will help us to understand like what we are looking at, what we could buy. So let's go ahead and we need to share our income, debts, and savings and down payments amount. So let's say that our yearly gross income is around 200K. Our debts currently sit at, I think, around 24,000, with monthly payments totaling $600, around $600. And then savings currently is about 10K. And our down payment amount that we want to aim for is going to be probably around 100K. And then I will say, please take into account that I will be selling a house and using the profits towards the down payment. All right, so we're going to put that in there and see what it says about all of this based on the numbers that it's kind of giving us. So let's see. So in step 1, income and debt, it says the gross annual income is 200,000, which translates to about 16,000 a month. And then current debt payment, $600. And then using the lending ratios, it's saying max housing at 28% of gross would be 4,600 a month, which seems like a lot of money. That's wow. That's a lot of house, I think. And max total debt, 36% of income is about $6,000. And since it says you have 600 in other debt, housing should be about $5,400 a month to standard the 36% cap. Now, I think that having $5,400 of payments for a house is still like crazy, so I would go with like that max housing number of 4,667. I probably would not try to like buy a house that's like $5,400 a month, because that is way above what I feel comfortable paying. And so it's saying, the max monthly housing budget would be like 46 to 54. And then with the down payments and savings, it's saying the current savings, 10K, and the planned down payment of 100K plus whatever you net from selling your house. Lenders like to see you still have 2 to 3 months of expenses in cash reserves after closing. And that's 10 to 15K for me minimum. So if we plan to use the profits from our house sale, this can fund both the down payment and the reserves, which I agree. I think that that's good. So now let's think about translating that to house prices. And this is really nice. It says mortgage calculators usually assume about 7% interest rate. This can fluctuate. We know that with the Fed, cutting interest rates recently, that it might start coming down, but we're not 100% sure how much is coming down. But 7% is probably on the higher end, and I'm hoping in next year that interest rates will go even lower. But I think that if we remain conservative now and go at a higher interest rate, that does mean we could afford more house if the interest rates are lower next year when we actually start really buckling down and looking to buy. So this is saying there's a couple of different scenarios, which is why I really like using ChatGPT. It gives you different scenarios that you can look at and then kind of understand what you could do. So scenario A is for an $800,000 house, which I think in this area is a pretty big house. I've been looking on Zillow and stuff like that for things within that range, and that is definitely at the like top end. And very big house, like probably 2,000 plus square feet, and like a big house. So this would say if you did a down payment on $100,000 of an $800,000 house, that would put you under the 20% down payment mark. You'd be at 12.5%. And I do like to follow the money guy rules of, if this is not your first house, if it's your second house, if it's a rental house or anything like that, you should be aiming to do 20% down payment. So for this reason, I probably wouldn't pick the $800,000 house unless for some reason like we would be able to come up with another 8.5% to get to 20% down payment on an $800,000 house, which is like so crazy. It said if you did a down payment of 100K, your loan would be 700K, and then your monthly P&I, so your monthly principal and interest, would be about 4660, which is already just the monthly principal and interest, not including escrow, not including PMI, that kind of stuff, is 4660. So I'm already seeing that an $800,000 house is way out of my comfort zone, way out of my price range. And then it's saying, add taxes and insurances, which is about 800 to 1200 typically, and this does vary by area, and that would be 54 to 5800. And again, PMI on this you would have to factor in PMI because of the fact that you're not putting 20% down. So you have to think about that. And it says fits, but at the upper edge of your comfort zone. I don't think it fits at all. I would be more conservative than ChatGPT. Scenario B is for a 700K house. So even with 100K, you're still looking at a 14% down payment. So your loan amount would be 600. You would still have PMI, and your monthly principal and interest with 7% interest would be around $4,000, and then with taxes and insurance it would be 47 to 5,000. So that's still way at the upper end. I think 700,000 would be a lot. And then finally, scenario C is a $600,000 house with a down payment being at 17%. So we're still not quite at that 20% down payment that I would like to do. And this is a loan of 500,000, and monthly P&I would be about 3,300, and taxes and insurance including PMI would bring you up to 4,000 to 4,300. I'm just going to go on the high end because that could also include HOA, 4,300. So that's it. They say very comfortable, gives you room to save and invest. So 17% is pretty good, but I would prefer, like I said, putting down that full total 20%. And so then it gives you kind of like a nice summary of everything that you've talked about. So the max house you could technically qualify is $850,000 to $900,000, like almost $1 million house. That to me is insane. Almost a $1 million house, seems so crazy for me. That would be, in where I live, that would be like a house on the golf course. And so I don't think that I could reasonably feel comfortable paying that much money and living in one of those neighborhoods. So I would definitely go on the scenario C route of 600K or less. And so this is saying a comfortable realistic range is 600 to 750. And again, that depends on how much of the house sale profit boost our down payment. I think that is a good thing to look at next. So let's talk about the sale of the house. So let's talk about how much we could reasonably make from the house sale. Let's assume a sale price of, let's go 250K. Closing costs of 6%, and an outstanding mortgage of 125K. I think that will be kind of where our mortgage is around there, because our mortgage interest rate is super low at 2.99. I'm also on a 20-year fixed instead of a 30-year fixed. So I'm already on an accelerated timeline to pay off the house. So I think that by the time we actually do go to sell, we should be around that much based on how much we pay off each month now. So let's go ahead and see what it says about that. So this will go over our net proceeds. So again, we're taking in the expected sale price, any closing costs, which are generally about 6%. They could be higher depending on all the different things. And then the mortgage payoff, and then the net proceeds. So this is saying if you sell it at $250 with closing costs only of 6%, which would be about $15,000 of the house sale, and then the mortgage payoff of $125, that would leave you with about $110,000 of net proceeds, give or take, for things like prorated taxes, repairs, and minor fees. And combined with the 10K current savings that we have, that's about $120,000 available. So that is, that means our down payment budget is close to that 100K that we want, while still leaving aside money in our emergency fund. And I mean, our emergency fund is on top of the 10K, so we're not taking that into account really here. But I just think that that is, depending on how the housing market goes, I think that 250 is a reasonable price to sell our house at. I think that that is a very realistic scenario. I think people could pay that much. And we have done like some work on the house. You know, the house that I bought was really turnkey when I bought it. It was a fixer upper before, and then the person before me bought it and flipped it. And we did some work on it as well. So we have like, repainted the front porch. Well, I guess restaining it because it's wood. And then we also created a beautiful patio area in the front. And so we have done some renovation. We haven't done a lot of renovation to the inside of the house because there wasn't that much needed. But I think that's a very reasonable estimate for how much we could sell the house for. And so I think that, thinking about having that much in net proceeds would be good. And also, when you're thinking about net proceeds of your house, net proceeds from the sale of a primary house, not a secondary house or a rental house, is tax-free earnings if you and your spouse, if the sale of the house is under $500,000, if your net proceeds are under $500,000, then it's tax-free. So that's really nice to think about, is that all this money that we're going to get will be tax-free. And hopefully by the time that we sell our house and things like that, we will have paid off my car and paid down my husband's student loans quite a bit. So I think that reasonably we could start looking at houses in the 500 to 600 range, and that's kind of where we want to be at. So honestly, I would give ChatGPT like a 7 out of 10 for their analysis. I think that I would be more conservative with my numbers than ChatGPT is. But thank you so much for watching this fun little video. If you liked it, comment down below with the house emoji. I would love to see all of your comments down below. Have you run calculators like this, like using AI, ChatGPT, that kind of stuff to try and figure this out? Or have you used like different rule of thumbs from different people? I really enjoy using a mix of them. And so I kind of take all of the information that I get from lots of different sources and go from there to really determine what I would like. And also, if you want like a follow-up video to this where I, maybe start looking on Zillow and seeing what different price points could get me based on these different scenarios, let me know. I would love to do that. I think it's kind of fun to like look at houses on Zillow anyway. So if you want a video like that, let me know in the comments down below. As always, please make sure to like and subscribe, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye, guys.